Hari, great to have you on the podcast. You're inventing some pretty amazing product updates here at Talent Connect this week. And before we get into those details, maybe can you share with me LinkedIn's broader vision for how AI in particular is going to shape the future of hiring?
Yeah. So our LinkedIn mission has not changed, and it's I'm honestly about a mission I love and why I work here, but it's to keep people connect to economic opportunity. And the way I think about AI is there are many ways that in the world of hiring, think about what the hiring process is. You got to go from a billion people on LinkedIn to that one perfect hire. And when I think about AI, it's a means by which you can get rid of some of the friction that stops people from finding that perfect hire in a billion, or if you're a job seeker, being one of the billion to finding that perfect opportunity. And so take something like as recent as our new job search. Across all these millions and tens of millions of jobs, you're looking through and you're looking for something that's a great opportunity for you. And when we were using AI, we were able to make a much different way to search. All across the internet, you come in, you put in a title and you put in a location, you get a result. But our new job search using AI, you can put things like, help me find jobs where I can, use my podcasting skills. Help me find jobs that will help me with my passion of helping children learn to read. And it'll show you a set of opportunities that you wouldn't have found if you just searched by title.
Yeah.
And that to me is a really good example of kind of using AI. It doesn't have to be an AI product, but it's using AI to solve a problem better. And in our case, it's using AI to help people connect better in opportunity. And that's something that we're always thinking about is how do we do it? And we had this new clay. It's been fun to use it to kind of help our products get better.
I love the framing you put there because I hadn't thought about, let's say, two unique problems. One being that, finding a job has been a technical thing. I used to have to teach friends and family how to use a job board or use a search engine or use LinkedIn to find a job. And now that's just natural language. I can just, as you say, describe what I want and the AI will buffer do the work. And the other being, let's say, LinkedIn and other tools being a victim of their own success, and that like the membership is over 1 billion people. There's so many jobs listed that the noise has become its own problem for finding a candidate or finding a job as well.
I think that, I always think about it as the most complicated marketplace in the world. Where you think about labor, it's just the very different kind of marketplace. There are going to be some jobs you can get because of certification, but other people, are not. Some jobs are hybrid, some are not. Some jobs are part-time, but some are working 3 days a week. There's just all these different variations. And you're correct. Like just trying, and when you multiply that times the scale that LinkedIn now operates, it creates a very hard technical problem. And making it accessible to someone to say, look, you want to be able to navigate and put that power to you. That's been something that AI has been really helpful for.
So let's dig into hiring assistant.
Yeah.
So as a person who's been involved in product myself and building out products, I can end up going down a rabbit hole of what I geek out on. But walk me through your team's initial research in terms of the problems to be solved, the job will be done from the customer perspective. What did you zone in on as the key problems to be solved or jobs to be done?
It's such a great question. So I remember there was this moment where I talked to thousands and thousands of recruiters in my day. And there's always this I'll start with the emotional pain points and we'll get into kind of the way we've imagined the process. But there was always this very strange thing. So I'd sit down with someone, you talk to them about their job, and they would light up at the idea that they could connect people. And they would light up at this idea. They always had a candidate in mind. They're like, I placed this candidate there. They love their job. And then, because of my job, I'd be like, well, walk me through the tools. Let's start understanding what you're doing. You start thinking about their day. And they love their job, but they hate their day. And they'd start going through like, well, I have to go, paste this system to this system. Calendaring is really hard. And I want to connect with this candidate, but it's been really hard to do that because we have to do a screen. And, I did 4 screens today. Only one of them made it past 5 minutes. It was just the pain and the drudgery of kind of the day-to-day was tough. And I knew that the pain point in this job was just letting people do what they want, and recruit, just be able to connect again. So then, we have this kind of picture that kind of lives across the team, which is now let's just walk through every step that's required in that process to get that beautiful moment of connection. And if you think about it, it's everything from you have to do an intake, and there's a bunch of tasks under an intake. You have to do the sourcing and a bunch of tasks under the sourcing, and to do the applicant review and a bunch of tasks under that, all the way to the messaging, the screening, the interviewing. And that entire flow we just kind of had on the board. And we knew the more things that people were spending time on the left side of that chart, where you're just simply writing the job description and you're kind of running a screening and you're doing that repetitive part, the more we could reduce that, the more they could spend time on closing the candidates they want, spending time with the candidates they want, and then all the metrics around time to fill and all the, number of great hires they would put in, we call them confirmed hires, all of those things would start to increase. So that was kind of the strategies. Could we make a hiring assistant that would take that drudgery and some of the work on the left side of that chart and take it out of the plate so we could focus on things on the right?
Erin Scruggs this morning on the stage had a brilliant quote from one of her team where she talked about her new morning, I think, was making a cup of coffee and sitting there and reviewing the work that hiring assistant had started that morning. What have been some of I love that the imagery of that. It really struck me and has stayed with me since hearing it. What are some of the other customer use cases you've seen in terms of behavioral change, workflow change so far?
I'll give you two that really kind of struck me. The first is, well, first of all, the feedback is, as a product builder, as fun as I've seen, you hear people talking about as a partner, you hear them saying, I can't go back to the way things were working before. As a product builder, and I know you'd relate to this, those are like some of the best things you can hear. It means you've kind of molded something interesting. There's two behavior changes that I don't think we expect. So we've been building this in Charter with several hundred different customers, and I don't think we expected this. The first is, okay, so for the longest time, the bottleneck, or at least a bottleneck in kind of hiring, was the ability to source for people. So you would do an intake, and then you'd spend a lot of time sitting there sourcing. Now, in theory, you could put in whatever you want to the hiring assistant and look across 1 billion people, all these different Bitcoin, and it'll give you a list of really qualified people. But it turns out that the ability to articulate a role is becoming more and more important when the sourcing becomes faster and faster. So when we first launched the product, we used our typical inflow. You just come in, you put in job description, you type in whatever, but you'd get back a set of candidates. People are like, well, this isn't what I was looking for. And then we go, matches, we'd sit down with them, we talk about, but it matches what you've written. And it turns out, well, there's a whole nother level of precision required when you could get things very, very quickly. So we launched a brand new intake flow. It allows you to calibrate against people, allows you to see things. It allows you to basically get much more precise in what you're writing. And that ability to articulate what you're looking for has been a very big change in process that I think is now like one of the real learning that needs to occur as the cost of sourcing is falling. The second thing just is a big behavior change is I've been calling it evidence-based hiring. So when you get back a list of people, you will get back from the hiring assistant how people matched up to those tasks and the skills you want. And if you scroll over it, you can see the details from their profile or their resume, if your ATS is connected, around the evidence, whether it's, hey, I had this particular thing on my profile, I have this certificate I look for, this is why I've proven it. And that to me is a really different kind of hiring. Because before, if I hired a ton of product managers, I'd start looking for particular patterns. Have they done product management before, et cetera. Now, I kind of list much more precise terms. Have they worked on semantic search relevance? And I don't particularly care if they've been in product or not. What I particularly care about for this role is whether they can do these skills. And they may have done that kind of relevance in a previous AI role. Maybe they had a PhD in it. Maybe they have a patent in it. And those are all interesting pieces of evidence I can go searching at. So I think you even heard a little bit from some of the customers today. They keep saying things like, oh, hiring assistant found someone that I never would have imagined finding otherwise. And that's why, because it's looking across all kinds of different evidences and not making this kind of almost like axe-like cuts based on title. And that to me is a whole different process as well. How do you now start realizing you can search by these new capabilities and start navigating the talent pool in that new way?
See, I love what you've done there and the team has done, because that's a real beauty of product done well, which is, for example, explainability. Because there are other products, I won't name them, in our space where candidates are ranked by a number or a code, and you've no idea why. And it really frustrates recruiters not to have that.
It also frustrates candidates, right? Because no one is taking a job without not talking to another human. So if you can't explain why you're reaching out and why you care, I don't think that person is going to want to hang out with you. And so I just think sometimes that people come into the space and they're like, oh, we're coming with AI, and it's like, we're just going to automate the whole, and it's not really understanding the details of the social aspects of what this is. And I feel like we, as a team, I'm really proud that we know our space and we kind of understand those nuances. And I'm hopeful it's why we're seeing a lot of the great results.
You mentioned the charter program that's running for about a year now, or more than a year. One of the things I noticed, because I got my hands on LinkedIn Hiring Assistant a few months ago, and my understanding is it's evolved a lot through that feedback. And I noticed there was some real beauty in the simplicity. For example, you go from a conversational workflow straight away into a semi-structured list. I can see you're you're trying to combine this structured binary way of approaching search with a unstructured conversational way and unifying it in a really beautiful UI and a simple workflow. How much was learned in that year? Did you learn things like that around the behavior of the users, how they'd approach it? What were some of the big ones that stand out that the charter customers gave you insights on?
It's a great question. I mean, the product that we had a year ago is vastly different than what we have now.
Okay.
And to your point, it is a lot of the details, and thank you for noticing it, of the user experience that end up works. So I think a lot of these AI products start naturally in a chat. And I understand that because that's where a lot of conversations work. But the eye can process a lot more information necessarily than a chat can. And especially with recruiters who are used to processing things across multiple different kind of canvases, it lent itself to that. So to your point, the idea of the split screen and now that we showed and kind of carried through the product, that was something that came through the charter. If you look at how we will show obviously a full profile, but on the right, we'll show the evaluation of the profile. That all came through the charter. How we're getting feedback on each step came through the charter. A lot of what we did with screening questions, where now it's a really interesting product on screening because, at night, I understand a lot of passive candidates, especially may have a day job, so they're starting to write a recruiter, but they don't want to jump on a 30-minute phone call only in understanding our work authorization. So the idea that the recruiter didn't want to release that completely because they don't want to feel like, hey, candidate, you're not important. The candidate also wants to start the conversation, but realizes, hey, if I don't feel comfortable with this, I don't want to keep talking. And so the ability for both parties to be able to say, stop, see the transcript, that entire transparency layer we built alongside the charter. So there was an immensely valuable set of partners, and we're blessed. Like I think over years we built so much trust, and they care, and it showed, and they were able to give us feedback and work with us and show us a ton of patience and grace. And we're so thankful because I think this product wouldn't have been where it is without them. And some of the stats we're seeing now, I think we're seeing, nearly a 70% reduction in profiles viewed in order to get to a role, which means you have to just look at less people to find your candidate. A 70% increase, or just about a 70% increase in email accept rates. I mean, all of those things just come from a lot of care and thought. And this last year is probably one of the most fun learning years I've had in my career.
And I love that data-driven approach because I think one of the fears that the recruiting community had a year ago was that you're building a product to dumb down in-mailing, that this is going to be generic emails sent by everybody, and it's going to be, a kind of, you're going to regress the meme of what a message looks like, and it's going to be really obvious that LinkedIn sent this, with hiring assistant. But the data shows a completely different story. And I talked to several leaders here this week running big teams and asked them, what's your feedback? And they're like, listen, our response rates were this. They were 32, now they're 65. This works. It's better. It's much better. Like, these are real results. I guess, the ROI kind of is evident from that. But let me just jump gears for a second, because I know LinkedIn for the last number of years has had a big focus on skills first, right? And I love some of the information that you've published around this. I love some of the features around this as well. I was really excited to see this move towards screening and potentially voice screening next year as well in these conversations, which I think has so much potential to move beyond, just the words on a page and really dig into, is somebody right for this? So talk to me about the skills first approach, moving beyond okay, we've talked about traditional resumes, but do you see as LinkedIn as maybe having a roadmap that's going to help us even move beyond the words on your LinkedIn profile into something that's much more evidence-based in terms of figuring out somebody's right for the job?
I think the skills first has always been such a idea of how people wanted to navigate the world. It was just really hard to do. And we had two breakthrough products this year that I felt like kind of pushes in the right thing. The first we talked about a little bit was the job seeker experience, and the fact that you could come in and not only have to search by title or location. You can say, I want a job working on amazing, sneakers. Yeah. I want a job because my passion is clean water. And you could see a list of jobs that you wouldn't have seen otherwise because you didn't know how to search the role in that. And then next to the job, it would say, well, this is based on the job description, what they're looking for. These are the tasks and skills you have to show. And it would help you analyze how the person's going to see you. And that opens up now the aperture where you can search the world by different capabilities and skills, and you can understand how your skills stack up and know where to go and learn, of course, to complete the thought. I get everything I learned on LinkedIn. We want to make sure that you have the power to go get that. And so that was one big breakthrough, the entire new seeker experience, where I felt for the first time, you could navigate it in a world where it wasn't only by title, it was by understanding the capabilities and the skills of that role. The second we talked about was evidence-based hiring in the hiring assistant. And the fact that now we could show you the work, we could show you these capabilities someone looked for, and we could put candidates in front of you, and we now have the data to show that your email accept rates include the candidates like it. You're hiring people faster. And both of those, I felt like for the first time, the simplicity now of hiring in a world where it's not just by title was starting to happen. It was actually easier in some ways. And now I feel like the world will start catching up to that in a good way. Like the people who are starting to use this, I can see it on the job seeker, kind of our power users are spending, or their searches are becoming longer. And we're seeing the engagement of that increase. And that's a really cool thing. We're seeing people who go through the fit score, if it's not the right job for them, less likely to apply and find a job that is more likely their fit. And all of these changes happening across the entire labor marketplace that we represent are going to be really, really good things. So to me, it was a really big year in kind of the product truth coming behind that thesis that we've had for a while. And that makes me obviously really excited.
Dan shared that in the last while, the volume of applications has gone up 2x, right? Which is enormous and is a cost for a lot of organizations. Some products have gone about fixing this by trying to filter the top of the funnel more accurately. You've described, though, a bunch of job seeker tools that are, if I'm hearing correctly, more designed to not prevent, but to dissuade the job seeker from applying to as many jobs and to be much more focused in their search on their side. Talk to me about that vision of trying to, not have them apply for 300 jobs, but to really focus on the one you're probably going to get.
Yeah. So transparency is very much your friend, as so there's certainly some job seekers who are going to go hit apply everywhere. And some of that is honestly like even abuse, and we have fuse limits and things that make sure that we are preventing those things from happening. But some of it is just, you're not informed. So you come to a job and you're like, okay, am I a senior marketing manager or a marketing manager? I don't know. I mean, like, what's the, so maybe you apply to one, maybe you apply to two. If you're able to see, okay, this is where my match is best, and this is the particulars of what they're looking for. And if nothing else, even you may have some of those capabilities, you just aren't articulating them. Now you are a much better fit candidate. And so we have found that for the more and more we have leaned into this idea of transparency, of coaching. We just launched the ability to do kind of basically mock interviews, which gives you one more step of understanding. Most job seekers are starting to realize that, and the stats are showing now that we are able to direct people into the jobs that are, they feel like they're more likely to get. Now here's the thing that I want to make sure everyone knows is we never limit anyone from applying to any job, and we always want to make sure of that, because I get it. Like I've certainly gotten opportunities and ways that maybe for whatever reason they were really important. We won't stop that, but we want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward for that job. And I think that was a lot of what we were thinking through, is how do we make sure you're best prepared, you understand what you're going in for, you're ready for that interview. And guess what? People rise to that. They rise to that challenge. They'll put in the work, they'll do those tasks, and then they'll be ready, prepared. And that's good for the market. That's good for the labor force, because it starts reducing the friction in unemployment. It starts reducing friction between people switching roles. And that, especially in a time where jobs tasks against each other are probably changing faster, it's really good to have people being able to get that upskilling.
We saw Dan this morning share a bunch of screenshots of in-mails he's seen, and we've all seen from 100 different vendors who have a new AI product that's going to do X, Y, Z. But one of the important things he said, and it resonates for me because we're trying to do this as well for enterprises, is building an AI product for enterprises that's cognizant of security and compliance is very hard.
Yeah.
The front-end UI that most people focus on arguably is the easy part.
Yeah.
Building all the back-end security compliance pieces is really important. So talk to me about what thought you've put into that, and then particularly the partnership with Microsoft, that's how that's helped your approach to an enterprise grade product from security and compliance perspective.
Yeah. I'll start here. So I think about kind of trust and security in at least two different buckets. The first is, at a very rudimentary level, are the people you are talking with on our platform and our customer, are they real? And we spent a lot of time making sure that we had verified identities of recruiters, which is good for members. And we're probably one of the largest verified identity sources for members now as well. And so there's kind of this idea of we have to do whatever we can to make sure the network can withstand some of the changes coming through, because it's hard to tell nowadays what's real and what's not. So that was one layer of trust that I felt like we really didn't talk about more than maybe 3 years ago, but it's so core to how we're operating now. The second, like you just mentioned, is now you're a customer, and we obviously, for a long time, we've known and taken very seriously that the data you have and the data in your candidate pool is very, very sensitive data. And one of the things we wanted to make sure when we started building this is that none of those principles would be compromised. And we're, a couple of years ago, when we started launching this ability to do different kinds of AI job searches in Recruiter, some of the messaging things. And I think nearly every customer, if every customer, has now been able to move into that capability. And it's because, and we go through a lot of audits with all these customers and a lot of understanding, but it's because we stayed so true to those principles that when we were able to explain how we've been doing it, they understand it, and they understand that how it fits into our larger system. And we have so many years of trust with them that they understand where we're headed, and that we're never going to be able to compromise that trust. We never want to. And I think that's been really good for us in this moment.
Have you also seen benefits, for example, the Teams integration? And then today, you are working with your parent company's technology suite, which is what most of your enterprise customers are using. Internally, do you have that real close collaboration then with your partners in other product teams and the other parts of Microsoft?
Without question, we do. And it's been very fun to, not only from a product surface area, but there's so many learnings that go back and forth, that it's just a fun place to build, because you're able to kind of understand those different surfaces and understand what learning is going back and forth there. And to your point, I think this Teams integration and the fact that you can now understand and collaborate on the tool that a lot of companies use to collaborate on, the tool a lot of people are hiring, I think that's going to be a magical combination. So I've actually had early access to it. I really enjoy it. Kind of like Aaron was saying, you get up and there's a message from, your ability to look at this and use it right in the surface you typically open in the morning. It is very, very cool.
Again, it reduces that friction and the admin of just opening a new tool, checking all these tools as well.
Exactly.
I want to talk about the future a bit, if you don't mind, and close out on this, if that's okay. I touched already on one or two things that were shared this morning. The voice screening, for example, and being able to have that. I know that some of your team have shared with us that there's been a request from customers around voice interaction, even on the hiring assistant definition side. What are you looking for? And bringing voice into that. I'm a massive fan of voice as an interaction tool within AI. But what else is on the roadmap that you can share with us, or what are you most excited about that you're bringing to market over the next year or so?
So the way I think about the last, we spent so much time with our charter customers. We're really trying to make sure that the AI was smart enough to handle the difficulty of recruiting. It could analyze a list of people and make sure these are the right people. It looked for evidence-based hiring, could do an intake and calibration. And that was the core of Hiring Assistant. That's where we're seeing these incredible gains and time savings there. Now what I'm spending a lot of my time on is thinking through, how does that fit into the natural social and workflow aspects of this role? So you touched on one of them. It's not like a recruiter goes off and does this alone. They have to work across interviews. They have to work across the ability to work with the hiring manager. There's a lot of pinging you again. How do I make sure that if we had a conversation, that message goes back into there? There's a lot of these ideas of how the workflow and the tools go. So there's three that I'm really excited about. One, the ability to work and collaborate with an ATS. So this means that if you're going and telling hiring assistant, please source for this, you're getting some candidates from LinkedIn. Why not just let it look across candidates from ATS? That's one. Two, the Teams integration, the ability to work into a communication and a collaboration platform seamlessly, where a lot of the hiring manager and recruiter conversations happen. And the last one is this idea of kind of the AI screening. And this is the thesis that LinkedIn itself is a social network. And on that social communication, you and I may be talking as a candidate. How do we make sure we have a trusted conversation where you don't have to wait for me and wait for another day? And so all of these kind of tools and these workflows now built alongside this, I think they're really unique to how hiring works. And that's where I think there's going to be another set of unlock is the AI gets with the tools usage and the collaboration and fits around the social pattern of this stuff all on trust. I think we'll see another step function gain.
A lot of problems to be solved. I'll ask you
It is fun.
one closing question.
Yeah.
Harry, and in my opinion, you're leading a product team in what is arguably the most innovative AI-driven recruiting product that's available in the market today. And you have the scale in terms of the organizations that use it as well. It's not the only tool that folks are going to use, and there's many, many tools that folks could be using, from ChatGPT to other products, their ATS themselves, CRM, etc. You have a view of how AI can be successful. You've talked to a number of customers, no doubt. What advice would you give to VPs of TA, recruiting leaders who are beginning their journey on AI usage, maybe your only first time at this event looking at LinkedIn Hiring Assistant? Generally, in terms of their approach to AI, what advice can you give those folks?
I would just encourage people to try it and jump in. And I think for me, I've been using this product for a while, but I remember, each new feature comes in, I just go ahead and I try and I jump in. And I find that by simply doing that, I'm kind of challenging my own thinking on how is this process supposed to work? Am I really being as candidate first as possible? Am I really, doing the right thing and how I'm evaluating if this is the right person for the role? And I would just challenge people to jump in and try it. I would try all of them because I'm pretty confident that when you do, you'll understand which products are real and which ones are not. But just jump in. And we offer several different ways to test out our products, of course, which we're excited to show. We also offer several LinkedIn learning courses around this. Probably our fastest growing topic continues to be different kinds of AI usage. And I think that's another great way to try a different kind of AI product and see how it works. And then lastly, I do encourage people to just call me and give me feedback. Like I said, we've been so blessed with communities like yours, our charter customers, to be able to get all this, a group of people who it's not just me and my team and to build. It's a group of a wide community of people who have been giving us feedback. And we take all of that very seriously. And so the more people could reach out with their thoughts, I think it'll help us all make this product even better.
I love the sentiment, but I'm not going to ask you to share your cell
Yeah.
phone numbers out today. That could be a bit too much. Harry, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing those insights. I'm excited to see what comes next from Hiring Assistant. Pleasure.